is Saurabh, and you're listening to my favorite talk show, The Weekly Show with Aditya.
This is episode 368 on a sunny Monday morning. After the euphoria of the heavy rain that lashed the capital city over the last 2 days or the last week, we are back again to the 40 plus temperature days and the final week of May 2021 as the fifth month of 2021 of a chaotic, misinformative, and a pessimistic year comes to an end. But that will be discussed later. Let's discuss the theme for this morning's episode. Let's look at the highlights for this morning's episode. This morning, there will be a discussion on captain, coach, and disagreements, and as always, Sherlock Holmes. Let's start this unique topic of captain, coach, and disagreements. In team sports, there are two leaders, the captain and the coach or the manager. The captain is the leader on the field, and the coach or the manager is the leader of the field. But football and hockey, the captain is only a figurative position. The coach or the manager calls the shots from beyond the boundary. Anyone who has seen a football match or a hockey match will see that it is the coach who gets excited the most when the match is in the favor of his or her team, and when the match is slipping away or the referee makes a mistake or one of his or her best players gets a card which forces him to sit out as a penalty, the coach is unhappy and everything is on the coach. Yes, the players perform, but who will be the playing 11 is the prerogative of the coach, and therefore the governing bodies, private or public, take their time in selecting a coach who will not be only a coach but a manager, a mentor, a psychologist, and make sure that the athletes are focused on the job in hand, that is to win the tournament or the respective matches. Coach decides who to substitute for whom. It's the coach who has a list that I will substitute X player for Y, and these are the five players who will be substituted as the match progresses. When that is up to him or her. It can work for and against. The substitute may go on to score a goal and be the player of the match, or the substitute may turn out to be a damn squid and may not work, but the coach knows who the substitutes are, whether he has to give a break to his marquee players so that in a 90-minute or a 60-minute adrenaline rush match where you spend more energy than on an athletics field, You need to preserve your best players, and it's up to the coach who decides who are my best players. Will I give them a break and then call them later in the match when they are adequately rested and hydrated? Because hockey and football can be drenching and it can dehydrate a player. So all eyes are on the coach, and the team winning is win-win for the coach, and if the team loses, the governing or the private body has a hire and fire policy. Straightforward. The coach is given a contract extension if the team wins. If the team loses or there are too many losses, the coach's strategies are reviewed by the governing body or a part of the governing body. Couple of members of the governing body form a review to decide whether this coach should continue, and if they feel the coach should not continue, they are given a golden handshake, or the coach himself or herself leaves the building. For example, the teams which are participating in their respective domestic tournaments, they are eyeing the Champions Trophy, that is UEFA Champions Trophy, and teams from various nations, that is the UK, Ireland, Bundesliga, French League, La League, and others have made it to the Champions Trophy. All year, their domestic tournaments happen. The best of the best is recruited, given the contract, given a hefty salary or a hefty contractual term, and same is for the coach. If the coach, if the coach feels that they can continue, they will continue. If the team is losing, then the coach is either given the golden handshake or the coach himself or herself decides to leave the building. Every athlete boasts of a childhood coach who made them the superstar they are. Apart from the team coach, every athlete has had a childhood coach who has made them the player they are. For example, Tendulkar boasts of a Ramakant Achrekar, that a certain Ramakant Achrekar guided multiple players, once among whom was Tendulkar, and made sure that he was prepared to face international pressures when he made his domestic and then subsequent international debuts. But there is a caveat. Not all coaches were well known athletes or had any respect or had any international credibility, but that's exactly how it goes. Those who venture into this profession are made out to be those with an astute mind. They look at minute details which is missed by the athlete in question and are in constant touch with their wards, which is evident in combat sports like amateur wrestling, boxing, MMA. If you have seen a boxing match, there is always a coach and the other support staff lurking around the corner. When there is a break announced between two rounds, it is the coach who whispers in the ear of his ward that your opponent has XYZ weakness. Whether you give him a punch on the gut or he is weak on his left stance or whatever are the nomenclatures in boxing and wrestling and everything, it is the coach who notes down what his ward or her ward did well and what are the weaknesses of the opponents which can be exploited by the athlete or the wrestler, boxer, tennis, or whatever is the sport. But a coach in these sports is always lurking around the corner. They even travel with the individual most of the times in context of Olympics. They are mentors, psychologists, and other They also take up duties like the manager. The athlete should be focused on winning the particular match or winning the gold. They should not be bothered by accommodation, logistics. The athlete should not be distracted by issues such as the accommodation wasn't good, or there were electricity and water issues in their room, or they were given poor quality ventilated rooms, or the gym was not accessible to them. It is a job of the coach or and the manager, if they are one package. It's the coach who has to make sure that such issues do not bother the athlete. Even things like media interaction, it is the coach who leads the way. It is the coach who acts like a advocate for the athlete, and if the athlete doesn't want to answer a question, it is the coach who takes the lead. But the coach plays an important role, especially in single and combat sports. Before we go further, let's take a short break.
It's 10:15.
Welcome back after the break. Let's continue this discussion and talk about a certain sport where the captain and the coach are two distinct individuals. Cricket is a game where 22 different people with individual ambitions and ego come together to form a team or feign forming a team. The senior players are appointed the vice captain and the captain respectively, and they are supposed leaders on the field. They are supposed to make sure that the 11 players that go the lead are doing the job that is needed. Off the field, there is the coach who watches in silence. Unlike combat sports or team sports like hockey and football, or even single sports like badminton, tennis, where the coach plays an important role, is involved in the game passionately and is constantly in the ear of their wards or their individual wards. In cricket, the coach watches in silence. They are off the field, they are sitting just like you and me sit and watch a match. They can be happy or disappointed with the performance of the team, but they cannot do more than just write in their notebooks that yes, this is what were the good points and this is what were. They can only do a SWOT analysis of the field, they cannot interfere much. Unlike football or hockey, the coach sits motionless with the rest of the team as her team gets into a winning or a losing position, and unless there is a scheduled break where they can send messages through substitutes, they themselves cannot go. It's like a Chinese whisper. They have to send messages through a third person, that is the substitutes, that is the players who are not in the playing 11, and therefore they are helpless. And in cricket, there is the head coach, batting coach, bowling coach, fielding coach, which means the batting coach has his or her own plans for the batters. The bowling coach has his or her plans for the opposition's batting team and for their bowlers. And the fielding coach will practice with them the catches where the fielding coach feels that the catches have been dropped. High catches, slip catches, low catches, whatever plans they have. But I think it's a case of too many cooks spoiling the broth. Just as for me, net sessions do not result in any efficiency. It's like saying that before exams we study, but I think that's a waste. If I have given an exam on 20th and I have an exam on 22nd, even of a different subject, I don't have to study too much. Similarly, if a team has played a game on 20th and they are playing a game just a day later, what can they practice? The net sessions are just what they are. They are just to show the world that look, we are practicing. But those practice sessions do not result in any positive results. You are just, they just got a 1 day break playing one game to the other. What plans can change in a day's time? If they won the first match, they have already played, they're already in a real lifelike environment. What more can they do? Nothing. But here comes the interesting discussion. There is always a supposed or a real captain coach conflict. For example, the captain wants certain 11 players in the team, but the coach feels no, my 11 is the best. And most of the times they may be on the same page, they may not be on the same page, and then changing plans on the fly. If the coach before the match begins has a certain blueprint of the match, that what is the team supposed to do, whether they are batting or bowling, the captain may decide to change the plans. They may say no, this is what the team we are going to go with. Or if the captain is expecting an X batter to come after a certain position, the coach may send someone else, and it may put the captain off because he is expecting someone who is competent enough to take the game forward. And then why do we have a captain coach disagreement? Because when two individuals with inflated egos, with a sense of superiority and self-centeredness come together, there is bound to be a clash over the pettiest issues. The case in point being, let's look at some of the examples. So the examples are themselves baffling. 16 years ago, there was a Ganguly-Greg Chappell conflict. Ganguly was the captain, Greg Chappell was appointed as the coach, in spite of having no coaching experience at any domestic, international, or school level or college level. And because of his credibility as an international player, having spent more than 15 years himself as a player, he was made the captain. But then both Ganguly and Greg Chappell had a sense of superiority and self-centeredness, which meant that they thought that I am better than the other. And when such individuals come together, there is bound to be clashes and sparks are bound to happen. And this is what exactly happened. Greg Chappell wanted a couple of younger players to be promoted. Ganguly spread the information, and this is hearsay. There is no concrete evidence that the team doesn't want me, I will be removed as a captain. Even in the days before pseudo media became the source of misinformation existed. But we believe that because we thought it came from credible sources themselves, that is Ganguly and Greg Chappell. And then comes the question of emails being leaked about the conduct of the captain. But for me, it's a PR failure that their issues, conflicts, or disagreements became conflict. How in the world is an email leaked if they are given secure email servers, if they have sent emails which are supposed to be confidential, then that's a break of disagreement. Well, it's not just about freedom of speech, it's more than that. If there is a captain coach conflict, it happens, it can be resolved between the players and the captain and the governing body. Taking it to public, it doesn't affect anyone. It didn't affect me. For me, okay, there is a conflict. I have had my own conflicts, but we have resolved it. The whole world doesn't need to know that there is a conflict. You can keep it within the walls. Same was the case with Ramesh Pawar and Mithali Raj. Now, there is no use comparing these two individuals. Mithali Raj has spent over 20 years in the sport. Ramesh Pawar had no credible experience. He was one of those fringe players who was lucky enough to play, but he had no concrete experience to call himself a coach. But as luck prevails, he was appointed the coach. He didn't have any sense of superiority because he didn't have that kind of experience. But clashes ensued, emails were leaked, and similarly, as happened with Ganguly and Greg Chappell, Ramesh Pawar felt Mithali Raj is too old and not fit enough to be in the team as a player. And that's when the issues happened. And now, ironically, both of them are captain and coach again. Well, will history repeat itself? That remains to be seen. And now, Pawar and Mithali Raj's issues happened in the days of pseudo misinformation media. Ganguly and Greg Chappell were lucky that pseudo media hadn't become a source of news or a source where people would vent out their issues publicly. Now we do, but 15 years ago, luckily, pseudo media was just in its nascent stages. And even if they do or have happened, how does that affect the common citizen is baffling. Let's take a short break. Welcome back after the break. It's time to change the topic and let's have some reading from the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Ha ha, he cried, clapping his hands and looking as delighted as a child with a new toy. What do you think of that? It seems to be a very delicate test, I remarked. Beautiful, beautiful. The old Gaussian test was very clumsy and uncertain. So is the microscopic examination for blood corpuscles. The latter is valueless if the stains are a few hours old. Now, this appears to act as well whether the blood is old or new. Had this test been invented, there are hundreds of men now walking the earth who would have long ago paid the penalty of their crimes. Indeed, I murmured. Criminal cases are continually hinging upon that one point. A man is suspected of a crime months perhaps after it has been committed. His linen or clothes are examined and brownish stains are discovered upon them. Are they blood stains or mud stains or rust stains or fruit stains or what are they? That is a question which has puzzled many an expert. And why? Because there was no test, no reliable test. Now we have the Sherlock Holmes test, and there will no longer be any difficulty. This ends episode number 368 on the
For more awesome content,
24th
It's
of
10:13.
May 2021. Stay tuned for the next episode, episode number 369 on the 26th of May 2021. You can also subscribe to my videos on YouTube and subscribe to my channel.